We have an early look at Fantastic Beasts. We have The Grinch. We have The Girl with the Spiderweb. And we have some Best Actor predictions. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to LAOFCS Weekly, episode number 14. I am so happy to have a newbie with me on the show today. You may know him from Cinema Blend. He is an incredible writer, someone who I read very frequently. Mr. Eric Eisenberg is here with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott. It's great to be here, man.
Well, thank you so much for being part of the organization and your contribution. It's
Absolutely.
Always welcome, and love your opinions and love your work.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to share them all on the show this week. So let's do it.
So we're going to we're going to just switch it up for the rest of the year. We used to have a format here where we broke things down in like 4 little groups. I'm just throwing all that out the window. So if you're new to the show, the first few episodes of the show are a lot different than these next couple episodes. So just so you know. So we're going to talk about 2 new releases first. But actually, I'm going to take that back. We're going to talk about a movie that didn't come out yet, but the review embargo lifted yesterday, and it comes out next weekend, just because I feel like there's a lot of hype around this movie.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are wanting to hear about it, and me and Eric had an opportunity not only to see the film, but to be part of the junket. And that movie, of course, is Fantastic Beasts 2, The Crimes of Grindelwald.
Or Grindelwald.
Grindelwald.
The character pronouncing it in the film.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, Eric, what were your initial thoughts going in, and did it live up to the hype that you expected from it?
Well, I will preface everything by saying that I read the Harry Potter books when I was a kid. In fact, I still have like first editions of the originals. I kind of fell off a little bit when that movie started for just various reasons. So I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan in the world. However, I have seen all the movies, and I watched the first Fantastic Beasts literally right before I was leaving for my screening of the second one. So my expectations were tampered. I wasn't going in as like the most hyped person in the world. I knew that there was going to be some cool stuff in there. And overall, just kind of walking out of it, I thought it was fine. I dug the character work. I think that, especially compared to the first one, which I thought was a bit tonally inconsistent, you kind of had parts of that movie that were trying to be very family friendly, other parts that were trying to be very dark and more, like I kind of just, in my review, I even compared it to Sorcerer's Stone versus Prisoner of Azkaban. This one definitely kind of settles more into that darker area, I think, which is a benefit for it. However, I will also say, going back to my whole not being a huge Harry Potter guy, there was some stuff in here that did just kind of leave me a little bit lost, and kind of I felt like I was in a little bit over my head. I didn't necessarily know how certain things worked, and that did ultimately have an effect on the way I watched the film.
That's an interesting point. I, like you, very similar. I read, a few of the books. I didn't finish the series. I saw all the movies. The movies, even the Harry Potter films for me, they were kind of ups and downs along the ways. I just feel like some of them were really strong and other ones not so much, especially the first 2 I felt were very, very weak.
Yeah.
Especially if you go back and revisit them now, they're not as strong.
Definitely.
The 3rd and 4th one were the strongest of the bunch. There's always that question, did they really need to split the last movie into 2 movies? Sure. All these things. But with that being said, I remember watching Fantastic Beasts, and I remember seeing it in the theater, and what was interesting about it was it very much suffered from the origin story setup.
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, we got to build this world, we got to build these characters. And the characters in the movie, I don't know if you felt this way, but for me, they were very hit or miss. Mm-hmm. Like I was behind Newt. I liked Eddie Redmayne as Newt. But Catherine Warner-Stone as Tina, not so much. And I didn't like their chemistry. I didn't feel like they were very dynamic on screen together.
It's very abrasive up front. Like they clash a lot at the start of that story, and you are so much on Newt's side at the start that I get the kind of, you don't necessarily fully attach yourself with Tina at first. So. And
then there's so much of this additional like character building in that first movie where you get this Credence is like briefly introduced, and you're kind of like, who's this guy? Yeah. And then there's all these other secondary characters, and then you have Dan Fogler as like the comedic relief as Jacob.
And also kind of the audience substitute,
Yeah,
being the human, just kind of like I kind of appreciated that again, just like being kind of.
He was the highlight for me in the first movie.
Yes, same.
You know, and then going in the second one, you know, I seen all these trailers. There was a lot of hype. You know, Comic-Con, they did an amazing job. Warner Brothers.
Yep.
Hats off to them for doing that amazing Hall H performance that they did this year. Best thing I saw at Comic-Con this year. And they were just, the hype was real at that point. I feel like everyone really ate that up. And after the trailer, I was hooked. I really wanted to see it. And I want to say that for the most part, this movie delivers. I think it's far superior to the first film almost on every level. You get more character depth. You get more of the build up. You know, you do get lost if you're not familiar. If you're not a Potterhead or whatever the term you want to use, you know, there's a lot of like. You know, the hidden Nickies kind of thing in there. Like it's like there's a lot of stuff in this movie.
And it just presumes that you know all of it as well. Yeah.
And you know, and that's because I think J.K. Rowling, you know, she wrote the screenplay this time around. There was rumors that she wasn't very happy with how the screenplay turned out for the first movie and she wanted to be more involved with it. But at the end of the day, I think her stepping in and actually making this movie more geared towards the fans and kind of giving them and building off the world and the universe that she created, I think it really added on. The other thing that I will say about this film is that I love the character building and how the character arcs change in this one. You know, Jacob is you know, we don't get to see him as the plucky comic relief as much. He's more or less a character who's wondering what's going on with Queenie and his concern for her. And then we have Grindelwald, who I thought Johnny Depp in this performance. This is a great Johnny Depp performance. Something that
I kind of wanted more from him.
Really,
because, I mean, I'll just say, like, for example, one thing about this movie, in the sense of my outside looking in perspective, is I'm not really sure what the crimes of Grindelwald are.
Okay.
Like throughout this movie,
yes.
he starts in prison. He has this like daring escape, and we like hear about him being kind of this master manipulator. And in the first movie, you heard about him being a dark wizard, and clearly he's for wizards over humanity. But at the same time, like, I'm not fully, like, I don't know the specifics of exactly what it is that he wants, other than maybe, like, wizards take over the world and humans are, like, the subordinate. But, like, as far as, like, the crimes, just, like talking about the title, I don't think that's something that this movie fully engaged with. Which
you know, that's a very good point. Yeah. You know, I didn't think about the title of the movie too much, because... What were his crimes? You know, like I mean, his crimes was he broke loose from the police, I guess,
sure.
And I guess maybe they were building off the first movie a little bit more.
But even in the first movie, like that movie starts with like you're seeing the back of his head and this big explosion, and then throughout you're hearing that he's evil, and then obviously there's the reveal at the end with the whole Colin Farrell. Hope I'm not spoiling this movie for anybody. But like, I mean, I guess Warner Brothers kind of spoiled it before the movie even was released last time.
Right.
So, but yeah, just that whole switch like didn't really mean anything to me. And then this one doesn't, I feel like, engage with him more in the character. But actually, I did want to quickly just highlight something that you said, which is that this movie is very much for the fans. And that's why I ultimately can't take too much away from it. Because, for example, I'm a huge Marvel fan. Like, the MCU, when I went to go see Avengers Infinity War, I knew every single little thing that was going on. And, like, that movie is perfectly made for me, and I understand that there are plenty of people out there who aren't as obsessive as I am, so they're not going to be a little bit lost. But we live in this age where there is so much entertainment. We are seeing so many, not only these blockbuster movies, but there's so many television shows and streaming services and all this stuff that, like, you don't have to make movies and television shows for everybody. You can speak to a specific audience, and if that's what Fantastic Beasts wants to do, and like have a really fun ride that Harry Potter fans in particular can really enjoy, I'm not going to take that away from it.
No, and I think, I mean, you did say, and I definitely agree with you, is that it is a better film than the first one. Mm-hmm. And I think the problem with this franchise right now that we're seeing is that there's a planned 5-film series about this. So even though I felt this one was a much better crafted film, it was a lot more grounded. There was, you know, the thing like about Grindelwald where I thought was really interesting was you kind of got why he was the bad guy, but you kind of got why he was so menacing and like people would get behind him because he was very much like a character that spoke like how he felt. And you can see throughout history, and I know there's comparisons right now to him, you know, to our president, you know, which we knew coming out of this
Of
movie
course,
there
yeah.
was going to be. But there's just some of his rhetoric is just, you get behind what he's saying. You understand his reasoning. It's very different from Voldemort, where I feel like that character, you kind of like, it's just an evil guy. It's an evil guy, he magic, whatever. But this one, like, you can kind of see what he's setting up, and you can see why he would want to wage war.
Sure.
So I appreciated that aspect of it. And I also appreciated the fact that it doesn't have to spell everything out for the average person, and that for fans of Harry Potter universe, there's so many little cookies in there. And I mean, even the ending, the way that this movie ends and where it goes, it's such a perfect way to get people excited. And I feel like even if you watch the first Fantastic Beasts and then you watch the second one, you kind of you're even if you're not 100% sold on the movie, you're still left with this feeling like, I kind of want to see where this movie goes.
Sure.
I mean, do you feel that way, or you
Yeah,
don't?
I'll continue watching these movies. I mean, I feel like even just being I have a professional responsibility to kind of like keep up with it.
No,
But,
well, take that out of that.
Sure.
Take that out. Would you go see the next one if you didn't have a professional responsibility to do so?
Well, I will say this. While I wasn't a huge Harry Potter fan going in, I was engaged enough with what's going on that I have a certain level of curiosity to where it's going to be going, and it certainly has tons of cliffhangers. Like I think there is a fair argument to be made that, like, I mean, there's a lot of sequels that are like this, but that it's not a full, complete story by itself. That it is just kind of a chapter 2 that is clearly leading, as you said, to a kind of 5-part series. But like you said, but in that respect, like, there are a lot of movies that are able to like hook me with that kind of cliffhanger ending and make me want to go see the second one or the next one, and I think that this one succeeded in that.
Good. What would you give this movie on a scale of 1 to 10?
Out of 1 to 10, I'm about a 6 with it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 on my review on Cinema Blend. And yeah, like I think what it is like I liked it. I didn't love it. I think I can appreciate it, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I would give it an 8. I think I gave the first one a 6. I just think that it really does build upon what the installments are setting out to do. I feel like the performances were a lot stronger this time. There wasn't like this awkwardness between the characters. They actually felt like they belonged in the movie.
Sure, yeah.
And the build up of Credence's character is just great to me.
I think Credence is definitely the most significant improvement, at least character wise, from the first movie to the second one. Because with the first one, you're just like he's not fully developed. He's kind of like this side character who's kind of like hanging out with Colin Farrell occasionally. This one, he's actually like, what he's doing, what his goals are, and I think that is a much better step for the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to this week's releases, we have there's 4 movies coming out. There's The Grinch, which is, of course, a remake of the television classic from 1966.
I think that's about right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's a Ron Howard movie that people don't want to talk about. Some people like it. Then followed up by we have Overlord, which is the new. It's funny, J.J. Abrams executive produced movie. Like, forget anyone else who directed it or anything else, because I don't know who it
doesn't
is
matter.
either.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. And then, of course, we have The Girl in the Spider's Web, starring Claire Foy. And then there's a little indie comedy coming out called The Long Dumb Road. How this works with the movie pick of the week is I'm not going to, this is going to be a first for the show. I'm not going to do the reveal this week, but I am going to say it is right now it's a nail biter between The Grinch and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So we're just going to talk a little bit about that. Stay tuned to our Twitter, and we will reveal that probably at the end of the day today, which one ultimately won, or it might be a tie. So who knows? So we wanted to talk about The Grinch. Eric, would love to hear your feelings.
Sure. Again, I'll kind of preface with my thoughts going in, which is that I'm not in love with Illumination Entertainment. I really don't like the Despicable Me movies, really at all. Like, it's just they've never clicked with me. I thought the first one's kind of mediocre, and they've just gotten worse since then. Not a big Minions guy. As for the Dr. Seuss side of things, I think Lorax is terrible. I really I think that movie completely gutted the entire inspiration from Dr. Seuss's book. This one, I'm okay with. It's fine. It's definitely not compared to my like past feelings of the stuff that I've seen from this studio. I think the animation looks fantastic. Like it actually has really cool character development. And just the development of where animation is these days, where you can do that kind of fine detail, especially with fuzzy characters, which is everybody in this movie. But I think the ultimate drawback, is that it is the story it is very much The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. If you watch that original cartoon from the 1960s, you basically get the gist here, and what's being updated here is performances and a few extra details, and obviously the animation. So, it's fine.
Just what the studio wanted to hear.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
fine.
Yeah, that's full quote. Eric Eisenberg, Son of London.
Yeah. How did you feel about it? It's fine. Yeah. Thank you. Good job. I watched the original growing up. I'm sure you did too.
Sure.
And I mean, it's pretty much a staple of my life, just like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and the whole Christmas Story and all this stuff. So we walk this really fine line whenever they do something that hits us so hard in the nostalgia side of things. Sure. And I know the Jim Carrey version, people very much dislike that. But there is quite a few people who do like that movie too. I was very mixed on that movie. I didn't hate it. I appreciated it for what it was. Obviously a cash grab.
Way better than Cat in the Hat starring Mike Myers, I think.
I love Cat in the Hat. I'm sorry. I love Cat.
Okay.
That movie is like Mike Myers, like him playing Austin Powers in the cat suit. I take that. It's so inappropriate. I'm sorry. Okay. I know why it's a bad movie. Don't get me wrong. I get why it's a bad movie, but my God, I had such fun. I had so much fun with it. But The Grinch, it's interesting because the trailers did nothing for me on this. My wife is big into animation. She loves it. And she was so excited about this. She's like, Scott, you got to watch this trailer. I watched it. I'm like, yeah, that's what you got? Yeah. And I'm hit or miss on Illumination. Yeah. Like, I hated Minions. The Minion movie, I hated. Despicable Me I like because I like Gru. Gru and the little girls more so than the Minions. Sure. They're just the same thing over and over again with those. And I like Secret Life of Pets, but again, because I'm a dog, dog lover, sure. I get it.
Did it weird you out that the dog in here is named Max as well? Like, is it just...
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It kind of threw me. Just weird. That's weird that it's a dog named Max just after the Secret Life of Pets. Yeah,
well, they also changed the voice in the new one.
Sure.
You know why. But anyway, The Grinch, for me, was like, I was not that excited about it. And I went in with, lukewarm, expectations for it. And I enjoyed it. I thought, it captured the spirit of the original. It added a little bit. It added something different. I love that they brought it up for modern times. The music's a little bit more hip. The character's a little bit more lively. The whole thing about the mom, Cindy Lou Who wanting to go to bat for the mom. It's the heartwarming because she let me get my hot chocolate and just fall in love kind of thing. I get it. I mean, it's not made for us. Let's
No, that's 100% true. Yes, this is an audience.
It's not made for us. It's made for my nieces and my nephews who want to go see it and they want to call it the Grunch instead of the Grinch and all that good stuff. But it's no harm, no foul for me. I thought it was entertaining. It sets the tone for the holiday season, and it works for what it is. I would give it a 7.
Yeah, I maybe 4.5-ish, 5-ish. Honestly, I think just speaking of Illumination Entertainment is when I see films from Pixar or even Warner Animation Group, I do feel there are original stories that are telling that actually have real deep meanings to it. And so kind of what you're saying is I feel they are audiences for everybody. Illumination Entertainment, they definitely aim for the kind of younger group, and also just I feel I just don't get as much when it's an adaptation, especially when it's an adaptation that we've seen previously, even in a different form.
I mean, when you take a Dr. Seuss, Dr. Seuss is beloved. Yeah. And his books are just iconic, even to this day. That's a author who has just every single decade has one on. You could just, everyone wants to share those stories, and they're great stories.
Absolutely.
So it's hard to bring that magic to life, and especially when it's not something that's 20 minutes.
Yes.
It turns into a 90-minute movie. And that's something that I will also give this movie credit for, is that it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's very short and sweet, and it works. But I get it. I get what you're saying. I mean, Pixar has set the bar so incredibly high.
Yeah.
And, Disney animation is starting to get there now. The last couple of years we've seen it, whether it's Frozen and some other...
Ever since Tangled.
Yeah, Tangled. Like, they've been on a roll now. But, for a long period of time, they were losing it. I mean, they shut down a lot of their hand-drawn animation stuff because they weren't making money. They weren't doing well. And, they went over completely to computer-animated movies. And, they finally figured out, like, hey, we need a good script to go with this beautiful animation, which I'm glad. But, Illumination, I think they make money. And they know because they know who's the demographic.
Right.
They really know that its kids are going to go see this movie, or they're going to beg their parents to take them to see this movie, I should say. Yeah. Warner Brothers animation's been hit or miss. Fox, Blue Sky, all those, they've all been hit and miss. There's no one who comes out other than Disney who, 9 times out of 10 has a hit.
Park, yeah.
It's just a shame.
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
I did not see The Girl in the Spider's Web. Okay. I was supposed to go see it, but I had to do a show here and then another screening I couldn't make. So I'm curious because I have heard very mixed things about this one.
Well, I have a very mixed opinion about it. Because I love, like, Fede Alvarez, I am a big fan of. The Evil Dead remake that he did, I think I'm a staunch defender of it. I think there are a few horror movies these days that are as just affecting as that one. It is just a movie that's just like so assaulting on your senses that I love it. And Don't Breathe, I think, is another really fantastic film. One. It's like so deeply thrilling. This one, though, I was so surprised because, like, just knowing Fede Alvarez's work, it kind of, I hate to use the word, but it does feel almost neutered. Like, there is a, like, he pulls back when this is a property that should be like going full blown darkness, and it never, I felt like, was pushing that line where I was saying, like, whoa, which I think David Fincher's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo absolutely did. I think the original Swedish films absolutely did. So I was kind of upset with that. And overall, it's kind of weird to say just because of what the source material is, but story-wise, it reminded me very much of kind of an airport novel series that has gotten into, like, its 8th or 9th book, let alone, like, what should be here. It's like their 2nd book. But it's bringing out, like, there's this big MacGuffin plot involving a, like, application that's able to take control of all of the nuclear weapons around the world, which is just preposterous and just and ridiculous. And, like, so you're really, but everything hinges on that. And then on top of this, so, like, you have the kind of weak MacGuffin, and then on top of that, you also have a, like, kind of backstory that involves Lisbeth's family, which comes from the source material, but it also it immediately reminded me of, like, Spectre, which, like, why is Blofeld related to James Bond, and this twist doesn't add anything, and like, it just felt like we need something to do to, like, develop Lisbeth's character from a personal level. Let's just make it her family.
Did they even address how she switched characters?
You mean that it's I said no. They just They kind of hint that, because, like, Michael Blomkvist, who was played by Daniel Craig in the first movie, he's also another character. He's also still in this one, played by an actor who I don't recognize or
doesn't matter. Yeah, they didn't care about that. Yeah.
So, like, I mean, but, like, you do get a sense of, like, oh, there is a past between these two characters. There's nothing specific about it. But, so, like, it definitely is a sequel, but it's not, this definitely isn't a movie where it's like, oh, you definitely need to see David Fincher's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo before you see Spider's Web. So,
I don't even understand why they made it. You know, like,
well, I can tell you exactly why they made it. It's because Sony needs IP. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the book, but there is, like, if you look at kind of Sony's development over especially the last 10 years, there was a big shift in Hollywood where it went from, like, big name actors, big name directors are the real big draws of film to IP, and it's now more about the brands that you own, which is also why Sony is now going full bore with everything Spider-Man, because it is by far their most popular franchise. So we're now seeing Venom and Into the Spider-Verse and every single Spider-Man project that they can possibly come up with, and so they need those kind of properties that they can kind of latch onto and try and continue as franchises. This is that attempt. They're trying to, like, make Lisbeth Salander a, like, franchise character. It doesn't really work.
They're trying to make it for adults, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to find an adult franchise because They have Hotel Transylvania, which is working pretty well for
fine,
them.
yeah.
You know, they're doing, like you said, the Spider-Man, which appeals to a very wide audience.
is, yeah.
I mean, they also, I think they're going to be riding on the Jumanji wave for a while too.
Yeah.
But I mean, Sony is just, it's a weird studio
Yeah.
because I feel like they just, sometimes I watch them and I feel like they know what they're doing. And then every once in a while they get thrown a project, like they get like Searching, like they get something great.
Because
and
always
you
like,
do
oh, wow, yeah.
You're like, whoa, how'd you end up with this? And
Sure.
then, you know, and then there's other movies where you're just like, I can
Yeah.
see why you're not doing well.
His development strategy is just not
Yeah, it's,
really
they need to
working
regroup.
Yeah.
They really need to regroup. What would you give that one?
That one I'm, I guess, more leaning. I guess like a 5 or a 6 in that one. Like it's fine. Like it's definitely a movie that like is perfectly made for like HBO on a Saturday afternoon, where you're just like it's on, and you're just like, okay, I'll watch that, and you're just not doing anything else. So yeah.
Okay. So I'll wait until it comes on streaming. Thank you for the recommendation. I will wait until it comes on streaming because it's Oscar season. It's Oscar
there's a
season.
lot of
There's a
movies
lot
out
of
right
freaking
now.
movies I gotta go see.
Yeah, no joke.
And we have a deadline of like December 2nd, so
Yeah.
I need to get them in. So sorry, girl with the spider's web. I'll wait
Yeah.
for you later. All right, let's jump into our. I don't know if you need a copy of this. I printed out one just in case you have some of your own.
Oh, that's excellent.
So we're gonna jump into Best Actor in terms of our Oscar predictions. This is just a general list. I like to start this off with: is there anyone who is not on this list who you want to see, or someone you feel is very being overlooked this year?
You know what? This covers it. This is no. I think because I think it's a very tight race this year. Like there's been a ridiculous number of fantastic movies, but as far as like the specific best performance, I think that I mean, obviously some of these movies have not come out yet. We're still waiting for, but and some of them I haven't seen. But this looks like the crew that we're going to be dealing with as we get into the rest of the
Okay. So if you can pick anyone from this list, who would you pick for the Best Actor?
Right now, just from everything that I've seen, I love John David Washington in BlacKkKlansman. I don't know that it's necessarily up there to like necessarily get it. Christian Bale in Vice, I am beyond excited for. Like
Me
that,
too.
just watching that trailer and just seeing and obviously they awarded him back with The Fighter for his physical transformation, but here it just looks like something that is next level. And Lucas Hedges. I mean, that's the thing. I feel like it's so hard to like pick a frontrunner because I'd also say like Lucas Hedges in Boy Erased is another really great performance. But that's another one where I feel like Nicole Kidman is probably going to get more attention for Best Supporting Actor.
Lucas Hedges has not only Boy Erased, but he has Ben is Back, which I know you didn't see yet. But a couple of our members saw it because I praised it, and they've been calling me or they've been texting me after they see it, and they say, "Oh, this is really good. You were right about this one." Which I'm not right about everything. I'm usually not right at all. But it's funny because he's my underdog this year.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take either one of those movies. I don't care which one he gets nominated an award for and wins an award for, but he's my underdog.
I will also just do a quick shout out for him in mid-90s too, because it's a small little role, but it's fantastic. And like he also has one of the best like emotional moments in the entire film, which like especially after it's such a brutal role up to that point. Yeah, but Lucas Hedges this year is like, I mean, because I loved Manchester by the Sea. I thought him in that, he was absolutely phenomenal in that. Definitely caught my attention. This year though, I think his definitely blow up.
And everyone always forgets he was in Lady Bird. He was great in that too.
Absolutely, yes. No, exactly. That was a much smaller role, but yes, absolutely.
It's very strange because I think Ashley mentioned this because she was on the Next Best Picture podcast earlier this week, and she was talking about Boy Erased, and they were saying that Lucas Hedges is at the misfortune because he's on Broadway right now, and he doesn't have a lot of time to go out promoting. Yeah. So I think that's weird that we live in a world where someone can have 3 great performances in 1 year, but is going to be jeopardized because he's doing a Broadway show. It can't go on
His
tour.
popularity is just getting in his way. Absolutely,
you know, screw him. Whatever.
I guess he doesn't need the award. He's getting the work, right?
I know.
Yeah.
But it's weird how we look at things like that sometimes, and we just he's not around on the festival circuit, or on the awards circuit right now promoting. Yeah. So it's like he might not have a chance. Everyone's been talking about there's a lot of names that I've been hearing this year, and ever since Toronto Star is Born is obviously
I
And
haven't
Bradley
seen it yet.
Cooper.
I haven't
You
seen it.
haven't seen it
I
yet?
have not seen it yet. That's
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
That's surprising.
Yeah, no, it's like I'm going to. I'm going to. It's just, but like you said, there's
There's one
a
on,
lot of movies.
there's a screening tonight, by the way.
I actually am already seeing Stan and Ollie tonight. Which
Oh,
is another,
Stan and Ollie.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't see it? All right. I want to say that's another underdog this award season. Fantastic.
I see John C. Reilly on
Four
this,
incredible performances in that movie. That's all I'll say about that.
Awesome.
Did you see Green Book?
I haven't seen Green Book. I'm seeing that on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Minus his comments on Twitter yesterday, or not on Twitter, but whatever happened at one of the junkets or whatever he's at. Which, by the way, I want to point this out too. I did an interview with him on Monday, and he also dropped the N-word during that, and it was interesting because everyone at the table, I was in an international room for that. No one reacted. No one reacted. It had no effect on anyone at the table because he was talking about the word in the context of the film and the time frame that it,
As opposed to
yeah,
like a derogatory.
it wasn't like he was just going out and saying, and this or and like he was talking about it in the context of the film. So it was very strange to me to wake up this morning and read this article about him apologize for using the word when he was promoting this movie when it's very much relevant to the movie and he's not going around using that in a negative way.
Right.
It's I just wanted to bring that up because I read that this may hurt his chances. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
And honestly, also, it's just like, this is also, we're still early November, and by the time that we actually get deep into the season, I think people will just completely forget about it.
But I think his performance, and I'm so curious, we might have to we should definitely have you back in the next couple of weeks, maybe the last week of the month, so we can talk about this and do a real thorough kind of like Oscar talk. We might have to do four people that week. But he's so good in this performance. People are like looking at it as like, it's so stereotypical Italian. I hear some of the naysayers saying it on Twitter. I interviewed not only him, but I interviewed the writer who is actually related to, I think it's the son of the real person.
Okay,
yeah. And it's fascinating because he said, nope, that was my dad. That was my dad. He became my dad. And like even scenes in the movie where I thought were like very Hollywood, where they were just like doing it for yucks.
Sure.
They were real.
Yeah.
And so seeing that, I'm going to see the movie again tonight. I'm just so curious now to rewatch it with those lenses because if I had anything negative to say about the film was those little cutesy moments where I thought were Hollywood. But he was like, nope, that would all happen. That was how he was. So
actually,
kudos to him.
I'll transfer that into a conversation about Ryan Gosling and First Man. Too,
Okay.
Because that, I feel, is a complicated situation because First Man I liked but didn't love, and part of the reason why I didn't love it is because I didn't feel fully emotionally engaged with it. In fact, like I actually draw a lot of comparisons between it and Dunkirk in that, like, it's a really gorgeous, beautifully shot, and oftentimes thrilling, like engagement with this real bit of history, but at the same time also exists from a certain distance so that you can kind of take it all in but don't fully engage with it. And I think part of that with First Man, what stands out is that Neil Armstrong is a stoic. He, like, in order to do the job that he does, he cannot be emotional. You can't be in a in a ship orbiting the Earth, suddenly spinning out of control in a zero gravity environment and start freaking out. That's just not who you are. So when we see Ryan Gosling in this performance being very stoic, and obviously that is, we've seen him do that kind of thing before. I mean, I think a standout one is Drive, but I personally love Drive. So, like, it's weird because when I look at this performance, I'm saying, like, okay, this is Ryan Gosling doing his thing, and it has a certain amount of power, but I'm not fully emotionally engaging with it. But, however, as far as capturing the actual essence of the person that he is playing, can't take it away from him at all.
I think, but what you touched upon there, which is interesting, is that it's not something that's new for him, and it's something that we've seen him do before. So that's what hurts the performance for. I mean, let's not forget to mention that the movie, like, came and went, like, with a blink of an eye. Yeah. I mean, they were so hoping that this movie was going to be big. They pushed it at Telluride, they pushed it at Toronto and all the festivals. And they were hoping that this was going to be their baby. And now they've switched gears to Green Book because it is Universal.
I mean, it basically got swallowed up by Star is Born.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is that, a lot of people, even people in our group, like Katie's like, why? Why is this movie out now? You know, like, and that's the question you kind of have to ask yourself. Right now, if you look at a lot of movies that have been coming out, the movies that we're talking about are very topical. They're dealing with issues that are in the now.
Yeah.
And, you know, was the time right outside of the anniversary to release a movie
the
like
anniversary's next year.
Yeah, I know.
I think that's ultimately the same thing. It's like,
Yes,
you landed on the movie in
I know.
1969. Next year is the 50th anniversary, which is like the ultimate anniversary. Like, other than the century mark,
Yeah,
you wait for the 50th anniversary. And I'm sure next year we're going to be hearing like tons of Neil Armstrong stuff, and it's all going to come out. But that was the time for this movie. But I think you're absolutely right. Is like, this movie, it doesn't have the certain relevance. And like, I think even the fact that like the most political thing that we've been hearing about the movie is about the whole flag planting scene, which is such a non-issue.
Oh, it's
ultimately.
so
completely
non-issue.
stupid. But like, I think that kind of speaks to a point, is that like there isn't really a relevance that we have with the modern experience that relates back to this movie. So while we can appreciate it as, I mean, because the IMAX sequences are incredible.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I think Damien Chazelle shot the hell out of this thing. However, like, but does it have an impact beyond the fact of being a solid film? Not really.
Yeah. And that's where I think the movie falls very short. You know, another name that's on this list is also Steve Carell, which, you know, he has Welcome to Marwen, but hasn't been released yet, which is one that I'm super duper excited about. I'm very excited about that. But they're talking about this beautiful boy, and I think this is another one that has kind of, you know, gotten a very mixed reaction from people.
Sure.
You know, me and Scott Menzel have
too,
radically different views on this movie. What do you feel about it?
I mean, I think that it is. I liked it. It's fine. Like it. I do feel like it is.
It's Oscar bait, dude.
That's the word.
And I hate using that term.
No, so do I.
It's Steve Carell screaming. It's Timothée Chalamet crying. Sometimes they're screaming and crying at the same time.
I'll also say it's the darkest fan fiction for The Office ever, just because of what it does with Amy Ryan. It's just like, oh wow, they're really totally crumbled. This is terrible.
I don't listen. I am a Steve Carell fanboy.
Oh, absolutely.
I will say I am a fanboy all the way. This was probably like one of his most underwhelming performances. I'm sorry, Steve. It just didn't work for me.
I think there's. I mean, like the sequence that I keep coming back to when I think about Beautiful Boy is when he actually tries crystal meth in order to try and understand his son. There's nothing to that sequence.
No,
nothing at all. And like I expected, like, and that's a sequence where you should actually like that should be like a montage where he's experiencing all these things and like thinking, and you should like see his thoughts come alive. There's nothing. Like, it just kind of happens and then nothing. And you kind of just cut back to like the sun and like. So yeah, when I think about Steve Carell's great performance, like I think Foxcatcher is an unbelievably phenomenal performance, but so then I look at this one, it's just like this one is like I get why you would think that this would be up for big Academy Awards, but like I definitely think Marwen is
even
much
Last
more,
Flight Flying. He was so much better in that
absolutely,
movie.
Yeah, he was great in Last Flight Flying. Absolutely, yeah.
And nobody gave that movie love.
Yeah, that got nothing.
No.
And like that ensemble. Also, Bryan Cranston is in that movie too. Yeah, Linklater deserved a lot more credit for that.
I know. No one seemed to see it.
Bypassed,
Now, do you think, you know, this has been conversation now for the last 2 weeks, Rami Malek, do you think he has a chance or no?
This is going to make me completely sound biased against music and movies because I also have not seen Bohemian Rhapsody yet. However, I did get to do a like preview event
in Vegas
when I did a thing out to Vegas where I got to see some footage from the film, got to interview Rami Malek, and everything that I saw, that performance looks phenomenal. Everything just like acting with the extra like dentures in his mouth, and he just embodies the character. And I mean, from what I understand, the movie, like around kind of the concert sequences, which was the bulk of what I got to see, doesn't necessarily hold up, and it kind of falls into some more like cliched like biopic stuff. But at the same time, like, what more can you ask from your star performer than to fully embody the person that he's playing? And everything that I saw is Rami Malek is Freddie Mercury. So you know what?
It's funny on this list. I don't remember what website I pulled this from. So thank you, Award Watch, Next Best Picture, whoever I pulled this from. Thank you. I visit you guys frequently. You know, it's interesting because, you know, on the top of this list is Bradley Cooper. On the bottom of the 10 is Rami Malek.
Yeah.
And it's weird because one of the questions that I had when I walked out of this, I asked Ashley, I asked a couple other people who saw it, people in our group, which one gave a better performance? And it's interesting because someone's like, well, Rami Malek didn't sing. And I'm like, yeah. But he had to become someone else. Yeah. And like, you didn't want Rami Malek really to sing, right? Like, he ain't going to live up to Freddie Mercury. So
no one's going to live up to Freddie Mercury. That's never going to happen.
You don't want that to happen anyhow. So like, let's just be thankful that he didn't try.
Sure.
But like Bradley Cooper, he has that sulky country voice. He's doing his Sam Elliott impression when he's singing. Sure. Like, he's really good. So it's kind of funny though to see this difference that people are so like in love with Bradley Cooper, but like Rami Malek is so far down the list for most people. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they're very even. Like there's something I can find about one that I can't find about another, and then vice versa, where I feel like they're on the same playing field, but everyone has Bradley Cooper so high. And don't get me wrong, I love Star is Born, but I'm just saying, like, it's kind of weird to me, and I wonder how much of this is just tying into the whole elephant in the room with the Bryan Singer thing.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just very strange. Before I move on from this, I do want to also give one last shout out to Ethan Hawke in First Reformed.
Yes.
Fantastic performance. I mean, I know no one really saw this movie.
Well, it came out in May, and I'm still not really sure why. That was a thing.
A24 couldn't market this one as well, I think, as the other ones. They had a good run with Eighth Grade, and they're doing fairly well with Mid-90s, and of course Hereditary, but First Reform was a hard sell.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to market that?
Yeah, that's true. And then, like, you basically do have to just, because, it's entirely about a priest who considers some really dark things when, like, set with, like, the realities of climate change. That's not an easy movie to sell in any atmosphere, let alone the current one. So, but at the same time, like, it is a fantastic performance. I think it is some of the best work that Ethan Hawke has done. I'm thinking back on it in a good long time. Like
probably since the Before trilogy, right?
Yeah,
like that's why I would tie too.
It's probably since Before Midnight. I think problem like this one because A24 has sent out screeners. They are trying to get our attention with it. But I do wonder if like just being a May release and like you said, just really hard to kind of get out there, if that's just gonna hurt his.
This is exposure. A Spirit Awards.
Yeah, there you go.
This is a Spirit Awards movie.
Yeah,
that's where I say.
And actually, I will also just say Stephen James, Beale Street as well is a fantastic performance, but at the same time, maybe not up to the category just yet. I don't know what
that movie was okay.
I like Beale Street quite a bit.
I liked it, but I feel like with all the other topical movies that have come out this year, it was one of the lower ones on my radar. Yeah. Like I remember seeing it after I saw Hate You Give, which I absolutely loved, and I feel like is not getting enough love this award season. Beale Street is beautiful because it's poetic and it's really a story of black love, and I did enjoy it. And Barry Jenkins is just magical.
I will say that's just the standout for me is just like what Barry Jenkins does with his like the cinematography, like the way that he frames the characters is just so unbelievably like it's chilling. It's so incredibly well done. His future is so bright. Like I am so excited to see every single thing that he has coming down the pike.
Yeah, I mean he's a brilliant filmmaker, and I mean I admire that a little bit more than I admired the movie itself. I think it's like the way he shot the film and just like the poetic nature of the storytelling I really got behind. But in terms of the performances, I just wasn't that like blown away by it. I know they're more subtle. Like they're not as showy of performances. Right. They're much more subtle. But I was just strange because I guess there was so much build up to it that when I went into it, I just didn't feel like I didn't walk away being like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, when I walked out of Moonlight, I remember having that like, whew. Like, and I saw that at the last screening of TIFF. Like everyone was talking about, you gotta see Moonlight, you gotta see Moonlight. I'm like, there's no way this movie's gonna live up to the hype. And I remember seeing it. Just like Mahershala, and it's a really powerful house movie. But Beale Street didn't have the same effect for me. No. I don't know.
I think that it's like as a follow up to Moonlight, it's not Moonlight. It's not as good, but at the same time, like I think it does firm that Barry Jenkins is an extremely talented filmmaker,
and we'll be here for a while.
And we'll be here for a long time.
Yeah. All right. So moving out of the Oscar predictions, we're going to go into our retro picks. We're going to do retro. what is something that you would like to recommend that's a little bit older?
Sure. Well, I have Ballad of Buster Scruggs on my mind a lot because it is honestly my most anticipated for the rest of the year. I'm seeing it tomorrow. Couldn't be more excited because I am quite possibly the biggest Coen Brothers fan in the world. So I am going to take a look back at their first comedy, which was 1987's Raising Arizona, which is a film, like, it was actually the first Coen Brothers film that I personally saw. I will say that I think Big Lebowski is their best comedy. I think there's a lot of people that agree with me on that. However, Raising Arizona, I just think is just such an incredible gem when just in every single context, because it is such an oddball feature. Like, it's one of the, like, it's weird to say but it's one of the most out there kind of Nicolas Cage performances, just because H.I. McDonough is such an oddball character. You can kind of see elements of what the Coen Brothers would later do with their career. With Lawrence Smalls is kind of a proto Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. So you kind of mix in that whole darkness and comedy. Of course, like John Goodman and William Forsythe as this are just absolutely hilarious. I mean, I'm totally rambling, but there's just so much that I love about Raising Arizona.
I mean, the Coen Brothers are amazing.
Yes.
I mean, they have had their share of, like, not so great. I wouldn't say not even not so great. I would just say misses.
Exactly. Like, I think the only legit, it's even hard to say legitimately bad film because I've rewatched it and my hate has lessened, but Lady Killers is pretty much the only one that I won't just pop in at any random time. Sure, every other movie, I think, is so immensely watchable and fun and has its own sense of style. And just like the fact that the Coen Brothers can just go all over the board tonally and always just hit it right on. Yeah, impresses the hell out of me.
I love Raising Arizona. I think it's a great film. And like you said, I mean, everyone gives so much love to Big Lebowski, which it deserves it. Don't get me wrong. But it's funny that sometimes people do forget about Raising Arizona, which Nicolas Cage is so damn good in it. He's so damn good in it.
Best performances, his career, and in love.
He's great. For me, I'm going to go back. I think this was like 96, 95. I'm going to do the movie Dick.
Okay.
Because it's on Blu-ray. It comes out on Blu-ray finally. And it stars Michelle Williams and Kristen Dunst and Dan Hedaya as Richard Nixon.
Yep.
Tricky Dick, get down, checkers. This movie was one of those films that I remember when it came out, it didn't do too well in the theaters. And this was about the time where I really started to explore seeing different types of movies in the movie theater and not just, big movies like Star Wars or action movies like Die Hard, where I started seeing like these random little movies. And I remember going to see Dick and there was like nobody in the theater. And I just remember enjoying the hell out of it. And Ashley, my wife, and I, we just watched it about a year ago, and I just how great of a film it is. Yeah. And then, showing the creative brilliance of Dan Hedaya as Richard Nixon and how he just becomes that character, but also seeing Michelle Williams and Kirsten Dunst in these roles where and seeing where their careers are
they're similar young, exactly.
It's crazy watching it, but just that movie had so many great one-liners and just like the silly idea behind like the Deep Throat thing and like just how like these two clueless hippie girls did the whole thing. I mean, I just really loved it. And for some reason, it feels so perfect to be coming out now, like on Blu-ray, because you kind of watch it and, just like fantastic piece. There's a little bit of a parallel there to someone who's in office right now. But I just, it's just a feel great movie and one that just did not get a lot of love. So I'm so glad that they're putting it on Blu-ray. So hopefully more people will be able to appreciate it.
There you go.
And now we're going to switch over to our final thing today, which will be the Indie Spotlight. What do you got for us for this?
I'm going to shed a light on Private Life, which I like. Just was released on Netflix a couple weeks ago, I think. But it's I'm blanking on her name.
Catherine Hahn?
The director.
Tamara Jenkins.
Tamara Jenkins, yes. Who makes a movie every decade or so. She started with Slums of Beverly Hills. Then she did Savages about, I think, 2007, 2008. Now she finally has this one. And I love this movie. I think it'll make my top 10 this year. It's just, I wrote as much in my review as that both Paul Giamatti and Kathryn Hahn are what I like to just call like real life actors, in that like they're not completely dedicated to drama. They're not I mean, and as funny as they can be, they're not completely owned in that genre. They find this place in the middle, and they just like they represent real people, and they're absolutely incredible in this movie, and it takes us through a process that, like, as many sitcoms as we've seen go through like pregnancy and and just go through that whole process, we never really know about in vitro fertilization and how that whole process goes. And this movie really dives straight in. It's like you get the full experience, and it's a lot of ups, it's a lot of downs, it's a lot of emotion, it's a lot of laughs, and I was absolutely blown away.
I'm glad you brought this one up, because I feel like no one's given this movie love, and I mean, Netflix was trying to push this one for a week or two, and then they stopped. Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, Paul Giamatti and Kathryn Hahn, on paper, you look at that and you're like, that is an odd pairing. That should not work. And they work so well together in this film. And Jenkins, as a director, she always deals with such serious subject matters, but she does so with such like heart, and there's so much humor to this, but there's also so much heartache and pain to it too. And it's such a beautiful movie. I remember seeing it at Sundance, and I was just looking forward to it because of the two leads. And I remember walking out of it, and I was like, wow, that was really special. That was something really different, and I think it might be my favorite film that she's done.
Yeah. And both Savages and Slums of Beverly Hills are great. Yeah, I'll even call back to those. Yeah.
It's so sad to think that this movie is just being lost, and that, it's a hard watch. Let's call it as it is.
Sure.
It's not exactly the most uplifting film to watch, especially the way that it plays out, but it's very grounded in reality. And a lot of people have went through things like this, and we don't like to talk about them in movies, but it's important to talk about them because I feel like people can be educated when they watch this movie, which is something very rare that we don't get a lot in a lot of films in general.
Actually, and I will say, it just occurred to me that I picked both Raising Arizona and Private Life, which are both about the difficulties getting pregnant, which was not on purpose on any single way, but, patterns.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad you brought that one out. I'm actually ashamed that I didn't think about it, because I do agree. And I really wish they would push this one a little bit harder. I don't know how many people have seen it.
But it's widely available for all Netflix subscribers. So yeah, use this platform.
The other one that I was going to, the one I was going to point out, which, is not exactly, something that you haven't heard of, but is also out on Blu-ray this week, is Black Klansman, like you mentioned earlier. Awesome. If you have not gotten a chance to see this movie, please do yourself a favor and see it. I think this is one of Spike Lee's best films in, probably like a decade or two.
Definitely. It's best since Inside Man.
Yeah. I mean, it's comedic, it's powerful, and I mean, the way that he ties this movie, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about this, the way that he ties this movie up to the end of to what's going on today, is just it's kind of scary. And that last moment is just, it puts you in the back of your seat. It's unbelievable. Well,
the
thing is that people were like so jarred. It was so jarring about this movie with that ending, and like people didn't understand how they got from that point to that point. But I thought the way that they handled that, where this is not really spoiling anything because you don't know what I'm talking about, but there's a scene near the end of the movie where they step out into the hallway. And then it does this really fast forward thing. And I don't think people caught on that it was like, that's supposed to be like, you're in a time machine and you're going to now. Yeah. You're going to now. And then it goes to the certain footage. Yeah. And wow. I mean, you go from feeling like the champion, like, we beat this.
Yeah, everything's great.
And then you're like,
oh,
fuck.
Yeah, reality.
And
it's incredible.
It's really powerful. And Adam Driver, I don't think is getting enough love for this movie.
Agreed, yeah.
Because, I'm not the biggest Adam Driver fan. I will fully admit it. I was not in with him being in the Star Wars franchise. There's been a couple of things that he's done where I thought he was pretty good in. Other things where I'm just kind of like, he's all right. But this was like a performance. Like, this was a real performance. And there's so many layers of depth to this performance about him discovering, like, I never thought of myself as a Jew kind of thing. And, like, I just thought of myself as a white guy. It's very interesting.
By the way, I personally can relate to that.
Yeah, so, me too. So it's like, kind of tying into this, you're like thinking about it and you're like, wow, that's heavy. That's heavy. And, there's a lot of conversations, but like, I always want to be black, and they like kind of talk about that stuff. But it's funny, but it also hits some very important points. So if you have not seen this movie, I highly recommend it.
Another top 10 for me. For
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so that's it for this week's show. Thank you again for coming on. Eric, where can we find you? Go ahead, promote the hell out of yourself.
Sure. You can find all of my writing on Cinema Blend, but if you are into superhero TV and movies, you can also catch the weekly Hero Blend podcast. We have a live show on the Cinema Blend Facebook page at Thursdays at 1 p.m. PST, 4 p.m. EST, and we have an hour-long podcast that goes live on iTunes and everywhere you can find podcasts on Hero. It's called Hero Blend. So yeah, check it out.
All right, sounds good. You can find me over at We Live Entertainment. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at The Other Scott M. I also do 2 other shows here. One's on the Popcorn Talk Network, which is Meet the Movie Press, which is on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. And then I also do Black Tomatoes, which is on Sunday at 5 p.m. And that's with Carla Renata, and that's on Black Hollywood Live. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like, share this video. Let us know what you think of it. We'll be sure to have Eric back on. He's one of our members, and obviously he and I had a great conversation this week, so I'm so excited to have him back on too. So thank you again for coming on.
Anytime.
And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.